Is it getting a little bit cold out there yet? Is it time for winter flying? Not quite yet, but pretty soon. Welcome to the Superpilotish channel. My name is Graham Wilson, and today, in my nice warm basement, I'll be talking to you about some winter flying tips. So, this was a request from DH Pilot one of my loyal viewers and fans, I guess. And yeah, so I take requests here for if people want me to talk about something airplane related or whatever. I'll talk about it. There we go. So, oh, and Wrench is here. Hi. So yeah, talking about this, and oh yeah, Wrench was wondering too about uh airplane preheating. So yep, I'm gonna talk about that today too. So first of all, yeah, it's right now it's October, so it's going to be getting, depending on where you live in the world, of course. It's here in North America, it's going to be getting colder, and see there's kind of a difference in thinking between okay, here's your nice summer weather, and here's your right in the middle of the winter weather. There's also that transition period that happens like in the fall and the spring, so you got to kind of consider that early now. And so uh, I was thinking how I could put this show together, and I broke it down into three kind of parts. We're going to be talking about okay, weather considerations. Oh, hey, Shecky, your actual airplane considerations, and then you, the pilot. So uh, we were going to call this with my whiteboard to remind me winter flying reminders. Okay, number one, the weather. Of course, because it's the winter. Let's underline this to make it look cool. I was watching one of my videos the other day, and you could hear me go squeak and take the cap off. Okay, so this is going to be very piloty here, but Shecky, I don't think you're a pilot. Maybe you are, but I don't think so. But I'm going to discuss some stuff that could help you, even if you're a passenger on like a big jet going somewhere. Okay, so for number one, the weather. Okay, it's getting colder, but the type of weather that you have to worry about in the fall is a little bit different than in like right in the winter where it's super, super cold. This is the time of year where you're going to get the transition from, oh, is it rain to, oh, is it freezing rain? And then, okay, if I go up higher, it's freezing rain. If I go down lower, where it's warmer, it's rain. So you really got to watch that weather. Oh, there you go. I never knew it there that Shecky is an RC pilot. Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know much about RC flying in the winter, but maybe something might be helpful for you. Okay, so yeah, the one thing you got to worry about big time, big time, big time is freezing rain. That is the absolute worst. That could happen in oh, hey, Daniel. Welcome to the show. The freezing rain is the absolute worst thing you can fly in because it can build up so fast that you might not be able to get on the ground in time to get out of it. And it really just it builds up weight on your airplane. It destroys your lift on your airplane. Freezing rain is to be avoided at all times. And like even if it's and this is also getting into when it's iffy like this is where you got to make the decision like okay, no, I'm not doing it. So the way I always say it is canceling the flight is always the correct decision because then you're safe on the ground, right? Anytime you're safe on the ground, you made the right call. So, and even if that means canceling your flight and disappointing everybody, but it's better to do that. Well, it's like the old, what's the old saying there? It's better to be on the ground wishing you're in the air than in the air wishing you're on the ground. And I've been in a situation like that a couple times, and it's true. So, okay, so we're going to worry about the freezing rain for the weather. That's the big one there, and you're in the another thing there too. I guess it sort of has to do with the weather, and it sort of has to do with your airplane design. If you're flying a little airplane with the carburetor, you can get carburetor ice from very hot temperatures to very cold temperatures, even. So that just because you're thinking you're all smart, you took your ground school, and you're like, well, the temperature drops probably 15 degrees in the carburetor, so there would be no moisture because of this. And you start thinking, now you can get carburetor ice like kind of anywhere, so don't be shy of putting the carburetor heat on. And then for the big jet guys, if you are watching this, and I'm sure if by the time you're flying on the bigger airplanes in the airlines, you will have had to have been. I don't know what the past tense that is, but you'd have to do some studying on a tail stall. So it's like, do I have a plane here? I will show you. This happens, and there is a Dash 8 that had an accident quite a few years ago. I think it was in Buffalo, and the people that were flying the plane, they learned how to fly in Florida, and they'd never encountered really cold weather before, and they're very unexperienced or inexperienced pilots. And unfortunately, yeah, it was a pretty bad, pretty bad accident where a lot of people died. But what happened was, usually, if you're going to be flying along and you're picking up some ice, like it could be rime ice, clear ice, whatever. Now, the big planes, they're designed, they have heated leading edges of the wing. So that's all heated there. So you won't have any buildup there of ice. But depending on the plane, on the back here, that might not be heated on your horizontal stabilizer. And so what happens here, and this is something that you don't really think about when you're learning how to fly a little airplane, or even by the time you get to the big jets and stuff, is that, okay, say you're building up ice on the front of your wings. Okay, so you have to kind of bring the nose up a little bit to get more lift. And then it builds up more, and then you go more and more and more, and then all of a sudden, oh, the wing can't fly anymore. Boom, the nose kind of drops. But what can happen is, if maybe that's all heated, you're fine, but there's ice building up here on the back. And so your wing, you know that your wing always brings you up, right? But your tail back here, this little horizontal stabilizer with your elevator on it, that's always got a little bit of downforce on it. And that's how your airplane can fly all stable. And so there's always downforce on here, but if this thing stalls, then you lose your downforce, and it just you lose your downforce, and then what would happen here? Then it would go up like that because there's nothing pushing it down anymore. So it's kind of weird. And if you're flying with an autopilot or something like that, you're not really paying attention to. You got to look at all your little numbers and everything to tell your angle of attack and all this stuff. And the airplane could be slowly building up, doing weird stuff, so that you might not notice until all of a sudden, whoop, I lost my lift, or you get a stick shaker or something like that. But just pay attention to, if you're one of the big guys flying the big airplanes, remember how to recover from that, which is like, if your wing stops flying, okay, what you have to do is push the nose down, and then you get some air over the wing, starts flying again, and you can climb up again. But if this guy back here stalls, you could be flying along like this, and all of a sudden you lose your downforce, and it just instantly goes like this. So if you say, I'm stalled, and you push forward, you'll lose even more downforce. And that's not cool. So what you actually do to counteract that is, if you have a tail stall, it's actually opposite than your wing stall. And you do the counterintuitive thing too. You have a tail stall, boom, you pull it back, and then all of a sudden you get your downforce back. It's kind of weird. But in any case, lots more speed will always help you out. But if you're low, you might not be able to get down and get the speed. So anyways, people out there in the big jets, remember your tail stall stuff. I know you were tested on it, but we're getting into the season where that could be an issue. And if you're a passenger, wear your seatbelt. So you should always be wearing your seatbelt if you're sitting down. Even if it's loose, then you won't fly up and hit your head and stuff if there's any weird turbulence. Okay, so let's get to kind of what Wrench was asking about the other day. That was just a couple little weather things. Check the weather, and then all right. Okay, what else we got here? Your actual airplane. What should we consider? How will this strange thing fly when it's cold out? Your airplane. Okay, so we're going to start from just getting ready to fly even. Okay, so I'm wearing my toque today, keep my head nice and warm because it's wintertime. Uh, so you you want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately when you're getting your plane ready. It's cold out. You don't want to be wearing a t-shirt. You run around, check the gas really quick, check the oil quick. Oh, get back in where it's warm. You want to be able to take your time outside and dress warm because even if you got to put it down in a field somewhere, you might have to walk a couple miles, like might have to walk a half an hour to get to a farmer's house or something like that to get warm. Or if you're landed in the bush somewhere or in the middle of a lake, maybe a frozen lake or something like that, you might be out there for a while. So make sure you dress for getting ready. And if you're nice and warm for that, you probably should be okay for if there's any type of emergency where you got to be on the ground away from civilization. Chances are it won't happen. But if it does, you don't want to be getting frostbite or even dying of exposure or something like that. That can happen. So okay, so how do we get this now? Wrench was wondering about preheating an airplane before you start it. Okay, so your regular little airplane, it's got pistons in it. It's kind of like your car engine, but a little different. It's got oil, it's got an air filter, it's got an oil filter, all that fun stuff. So the airplane oil is usually really thick. It's kind of I don't know. There seems to be like there's a lot more development and everything going into car synthetic engine oil and this and that. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on with airplanes because you can make a lot more money on selling to millions and millions of cars instead of hundreds of thousands of airplanes. And also you got to get this oil all certified and everything, which is a very expensive process. So usually all your little airplanes, their oil is it's usually kind of a simple kind of oil with not that many additives. Some actually run mineral oil, which is just here's some oil, no additives. And so that stuff is usually extremely thick when it's cold. It's kind of designed so it doesn't break down at high temperatures more than anything. But when it's cold, if you ever look at it, if it's you're putting it into the engine, it's been sitting outside and it's freezing. And like this stuff's like molasses. Like you can't start your engine. Don't start your engine when it's ice cold, because that stuff it's not going to splash around like it normally should to lubricate everything. You're going to get metal on metal. Usually when you do an oil change on an airplane, at least where I used to work, it's like the mechanics would take it out and they would cut the filter up, see if there's any metal shavings in there. And they found that with the guys that don't really care about, I'll just start it up. They'll find more metal shavings in there. So you don't want that in your engine. So, okay, if you are going to heat up your engine, okay, there's a couple different ways that I know you can do it. The best way is just throw it in a heated hanger, keep it at room temperature, and you're cool. But usually the magic number is about, depending on the type of oil, it's either like about 15 degrees Celsius, 60 Fahrenheit, or if you got the other kind of winter type of oil, maybe 10 degrees Celsius. What's that? 50 degrees, 48, something like that. Just in my head, Fahrenheit. But in any case, you'll have to kind of heat it up. So the two ways that I know, well, actually, I know kind of three ways. Actually, four. Okay, number one was the hanger. Number two was kind of like a ghetto kind of way. Say you got a little space heater, and you kind of stick it in the cowling and kind of hope that kind of blows some hot air in there. That can do it. Ideally, what you'd want to do is like Wrench has at his place where he flies. They have a little patch that they stick on the bottom of the oil pan. And so that kind of warms up a little bit. It doesn't get super hot, but it warms up enough and it's in contact with the aluminum oil pan. And that keeps the oil like, 16, 17, 18 degrees, maybe, depending on how hot it is outside. But it's enough that it's in the safe range for starting the engine. There's that little patch, you can do that. And then there's another one that where I used to work, they have it. The name brand is Tanis. I think Tanis, and it's like this little glow plug kind of thing that you have installed by a mechanic, and you just plug it in. This little glow plug type thing. It kind of keeps the block warm, and that's handy. So when do you heat up your plane? Okay, so talking to the expert mechanics at WCS Aviation here in Windsor, they recommend that okay, if you are going to be heating your plane in the wintertime, you don't want it to be heated up like just with your little patch heater or your Tannis heater. You don't want to be like just warming it up and then unplugging it, then it freezes. Okay, and then warm it up again a little bit, then it freezes. So what happens there is that you'll get condensation that kind of builds up inside the crankcase, and especially on Lycoming engines where you got the cam on top of the engine, that'll start rusting out on you. And when you start up, it gets all the rust off of the cam, and it can really wear down the cam lobes. So what they say is that okay, just leave it plugged in all the time. It uses about the same electricity as if you just had like an incandescent light bulb, maybe a 60-watt bulb, and just yeah, it doesn't use that much electricity, but it can save you a lot of money in engine repairs. So it's worth it to have that going on. Yeah, or if you yeah, and then if you do unplug it, that's when you start the engine up. Make sure you get the engine up to the proper operating temperature. And depending on your engine, there's a proper operating temperature or minimum operating temperature. And you got to get up to that. So that takes care of it, basically boiling off any of the condensation that builds up in the engine. Okay, we're getting all engine-y here, but that's the way these little things work. So you either leave it plugged in all the time, or or if you do plug it in, run the engine up to temperature, and then come back and let it cool down again if you want. If you want to save the pennies on if you want to save the pennies on electricity. So that's the way that works for the engine heating. And in the wintertime too, pay attention to those little gauges. Like is it hot enough? Is it up to the proper temperature that you can give it full power? Depending on your engine, you might have to sit there for like another 4 or 5 minutes to wait for the oil to get up to temperature, and you'll have to be a little bit more patient if it's really cold out. So that's something else to think about. Also, with your airplane, it climbs like a rocket. So you're gonna find out if it gets really cold, like you might be taking off in the summertime, and you're kind of put climbing a little bit, and then maybe you don't fly it for a while, and it's minus 20 one day, and all of a sudden, to keep that proper airspeed that you normally climb out at, you might have the plane going up like this, like a rocket. And that's pretty cool when that happens. The performance is fantastic. The air is dense. The propeller gets a lot of bite. The airplane has a lot more lift off the wing. Engine's got more oxygen going to it. Man, that's a really high performance in the wintertime. So that's kind of cool. It's just cold out. Okay. And then the other thing about the airplane too is depending on what type of airplane you have, usually most of them have some sort of a baffle or some kind of little chunk of metal that they stick in the front of the cowling, so that the cold air isn't directly hitting the cylinder to cool it down. These are mostly air cooled engines, so they call them winter fronts. Whether you're flying a Cessna or a Piper or Zlins I used to fly up in Sioux College, there's some temperature there where they should have these little things in there, and that ensures that your oil gets up to proper operating temperature, and it helps you out. So if they don't have those type of winter fronts in there, don't start doing like the truckers and stick a big chunk of cardboard there to keep things warm. You don't want to be messing around with that with an airplane. Just wait till it gets warmer or something. And okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about airplanes too, the actual airplane itself, was I guess it kind of leads into my next thing about the pilot. So I already said dress warm. There we go. And if you do have to go, it depends on your environment where you're flying. But you might have to reconsider like what emergency equipment you have in the back. If you got like, I always thought like it'd probably be. I mean, usually I just kind of fly around locally here, so I don't really. I get on my cell phone and say like, "Hey, come pick me up. My GPS coordinates are blah blah blah." But if you're somewhere a little bit more remote, people might not be able to get you to the next day or something like that. You might be spending the night even in the desert, like at night, it can get pretty cold up in the mountains. Shecky knows all about that, I think. And yeah, so you probably, what I would kind of suggest is like it's a little pricey, but if you get an actual wool blanket, those things are super warm. An actual real 100% wool blanket, those things are amazingly warm. And fold it up, throw it in the back. And if you got like a big blue tarp kind of thing, that's kind of holds. You could just you could wrap everybody up in a wool blanket, and then to break the wind, you put a big tarp around you. You know, you're not building a log cabin. Probably it's just like, we're here. Let's stay warm and dry. That's kind of what you want. So the I'd say a wool blanket and a blue tarp would be cool. Why blue, you ask? Because it's a color that doesn't really stand out in nature. Like it doesn't come from nature. So if there's search and rescue people looking around for you, it'd be like, hey, there's blue tarp. But if you got your camo tarp for deer season, that's not the one to see. They won't see it. Or fluorescent orange is always good. But I don't even know if you can buy fluorescent orange tarps. Maybe, but the blue that would stick out against all the green and brown that's normally in nature. So yeah, so there we go. So that's something you consider your emergency, and it's kind of a personal thing too, whatever type of emergency equipment you want to bring on board. And the thing is, if you do have that emergency equipment, you know how to use it. Hey, I've got waterproof matches. It's like, when's the last time you lit a fire? Like when I was a Boy Scout 30 years ago, and I burnt my fingers on the match. It's like, okay, you got you might want to bring something else, barbecue lighter or something like that. But yeah, make sure you know how to use the equipment you bring with, because when you're in an emergency, that's not the time to start going to school on this stuff. Okay, now for let's do another. Let's not forget the pilot. This is you, pilot or passenger in this case too. Pilot. All right, so now we're getting to it. So we're staying warm here as passengers and pilots. So if you're a passenger, it's like my little thumbnail said that, hey, this doesn't look like Acapulco. Do you bring a toque with you when you go to Acapulco? If you're leaving from Wyoming, you should, because you might be stuck in Colorado and you might want to have one of these. So I don't know, in Canada we call these toques. I don't know what they call them in the States. Beanies, I guess they call them in the States. But beanies, caps, hats, I don't know. It's a toque where I'm from. So yeah, here we go. Yeah, so your clothing, make sure. Now this is my favorite type of. I figured I'd show it to you. So this is what I wear. I wore it for years when I was working full time as a pilot, as a flight instructor. It works great, and I will demonstrate why this cheap Canadian Tire, cheap Walmart, crappy cappy on my head is good for your airplane. Okay, so you're outside, you got your gloves on, of course, and you're checking everything out, untying the plane, checking your fuel, checking your oil. Nice and warm. But now it comes time to get into the airplane. Now the cockpit's still going to be cold probably. But if you're like me and your forehead keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger every year, you're losing more and more hair. You got to keep your melon a little bit warmer there, right? So this is what I figured out. Just because it was cheap, I got this cheap hat. So you just kind of get it and you roll it up like this. All right, so you kind of roll it like, I don't know, just kind of give it a roll. So it just kind of sits funny on top of your head like this. I am a longshoreman. Here we go. I don't know. I kind of roll it up so you look like some kind of like Uzbekistan farmer or something like that. All right. Roll it way up and to an unusually high altitude of hat. And there we go. So I don't know. You see guys in the movies and stuff, they're always wearing their toques. They're wearing their toques like this. All right, I'm a tough longshoreman with freezing ears. You're supposed to pull it over. I don't know. So then you get your headset. And so now you want to have a nice seal. And that's another thing with my headset. I always keep this there's like these little fabric covers over the ear cups, and that way it's not as cold when you put them on in the wintertime. And if it's you get kind of sweaty and stuff like that with plastic on your skin in the summer, so I always like having that. So yeah, I just put it on, and then you can have a nice seal of the ear cup like this. You can even squish it up higher on the sides. All right. Oh, I can't hear myself now. There we go. So just like that, you can see I get the whole ear cups covering there for good sound deadening. This is all squishy up here, but that's why I like that type of toque. Now my head's nice and warm for when I'm in the airplane before the temperature comes up. And then if I want to get out of the airplane, I shut down, take off the headset, roll it back down, and there we go. All ready to go back out and shovel snow. And my ears are nice and warm here too. Nice and warm ears. Okay, so that's cool. It wouldn't hurt you to throw one of these things in your carry-on luggage if you're going on a vacation somewhere warm. And the other thing there too, I see this. I've seen this many times where somebody goes down to Jamaica, man. Okay, and they go down there for a week's vacation. They drink a whole bunch of Red Stripe and rum punch, and then they're like, "Hey, man," in 1 week they turned all these, these here in Windsor, the fat auto workers. They turned into Jamaicans overnight. Yeah, man. Okay, cool. And then, but look, you'll see these guys. They've been hanging out on the beach for a while, and then they just like, hey, it's nice and warm here in whatever, Montego Bay. Let's hop on the plane and go back to Toronto. And then they're wearing flip flops, shorts, wife beaters. It's like, dude, it's like -20 here in Canada, -30 maybe, in Montreal or something. Oh, I'm gonna wear my flip flops, man. I'm so cool. It's like, no, if you go down and you have to, say the plane runs every once in a while, a plane will run off the end of the runway or something like that. And you might be like at the airport, maybe the plane's not even damaged, but could be a slippery runway or something. You go off the end a little bit. Well, now and then they blow the chutes out the little your little slides, and now you're standing around with your flip flops and your wife beater and your shorts and stuff like that, and no toque, and like your ears are falling off, your fingers are falling off, other things are falling off. Maybe I don't know, man. It'd be better to dress warm. So plan on anywhere along your route as a passenger. We just think, okay, what happens if I go down here? If you go down the middle of the ocean, I don't know, good luck, man. But if you're anywhere else, you could be in the middle of a frozen field in the middle of, I don't know, North Dakota or something like that. And the nearest farmhouse is like 10 miles away or something. So you really gotta, plan on, okay. Or you might have to divert to another smaller airport or something like that. And even as a passenger, you could be getting off here, and then they just bring out your little air. It's not a nice enclosed little covered pathway to get to the door. Oh well, bring out the stairs here and come down and walk over to the terminal, and then okay, that could be a bit of a walk in your flip flops and your and your wife beater. It can get pretty uncomfortable. And what if they lose your luggage there too? Okay, now you got your flip flops, you got your wife beater, your shorts, your bathing suit or whatever, and then like, oh, they lost your luggage. Okay, now you're in Bismarck, the Bismarck Holiday Inn or something like that. What is that? Is that South Dakota, North Dakota, Bismarck? I don't know. That sounds like somewhere out west in the States. But anyways, yeah. So that's and yeah, I don't know. I always try to tell that. I was always telling that to my students and stuff, and they never listened. And I don't know. Some people. I could tell this one story about one guy. What a moron! But anyways, I don't want to single him out. He's a nice guy and stuff like that. Just like He can fly the plane okay, but sometimes he's a little thick. I won't talk about him. But yeah, no, I shouldn't be saying anything nasty like that. But it's like, dude, it's wintertime. Dress warm. Oh, I'm fine. Okay. All right. As you go get your fingers amputated over at the hospital from frostbite. All right. You're cool. Don't bring any gloves. What do I know? Okay. And yeah, so around your, what else can I tell you here? Yeah, dress warm for your clothing and stuff like that. That's about all I can tell you for your pilot. Yeah. Okay, so winter flying reminders. Here we go, everybody. Special request. Okay, with the weather. Okay, especially this time of year, start thinking about freezing rain, the conditions that could happen with that. Consider your carburetor ice that you could have. You big airline guys, don't forget the ice buildup on your horizontal stabilizer and the importance of knowing how to recognize a tail stall. Okay, for the airplane, okay, if you're going to be warming it up, you either go all the time or just before you fly. And every time you unplug your airplane from keeping that preheat there, make sure you unplug it. And then you're heating the temperature up to operating temperature, whatever the book says. And then after that, do whatever you want. So that's that. What else? Oh, another thing too. If you are checking your fuel in the wintertime, if there's any water in that, it'll be ice crystals if it's cold. So I have seen little tiny ice crystals before when you're checking for fuel. It'll still drain out instead of being clear at the bottom of your little tube or whatever you're using to check your fuel. You'll see little ice crystals there instead of just regular water. So look for ice crystals in your fuel. Forgot to mention that. And be aware that your performance will be different. You know, you're going to be climbing a lot steeper to keep the proper airspeed that you want. And emergency equipment, hey, look into it, Google search it, find out what works best for you, and considering your terrain. So if you're winter flying in Brazil, it's probably no big deal. You're going to need jungle survival equipment no matter what. And bring some water. Okay, and then for the pilot, dress warm, guys. Come on. Bring that too. Bring gloves too. Long johns, hey, wear your long underwear, whatever. I don't it like if some guys weren't like losing toes and fingers and other things because it gets frozen off because they're coming back from Acapulco or Cancun or Jamaica because of frostbite because they're too stupid to wear long pants and a sweater and have some jeans you could put your hands in your pockets if you want. Like, okay, if you're that dumb, have fun with no toes, man. Okay, and that's about it. That's kind of the winter flying that that's, if you have anything else you want to bring up, well, put it in the comments here. We always get lots of good ideas here on the Super Pilotish channel, so I'll go through some of the comments here, and we're going to check out what's what. Rich is asking, do you have de-ice boots on any RC planes? That's funny. All right, here we go. We got a little story from Rich here. So he's been in freezing rain once and icing started. Yep. Was flying just for fun, so I went back to the airport and landed at 90 knots. Question: when iced, does wing stall at the same angle of attack? Will horn work? Good question. Okay. The thing is, once you start building up ice on your wing, it's no longer the same wing. It's a different shape. It's different characteristics of flight. It's different stall speed. It's different angle of attack stall. Like you're a test pilot at that point. So good idea landing at 90 knots, which is a much faster Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I kind of forgot to mention that. But I mean, you could talk about everything, but I was trying to hit the main points. But good point. If you are flying along and you start building up some kind of ice here, leading edge of the wings, you don't have de-ice boots. Oh, a de-ice boot, by the way, mentioning the last comment was this rubber stuff along the. Some airplanes will have black along the front of the wing here, and it you can if there's ice that builds up on it, it's rubber and it just kind of expands. You get some air in there, it expands, and then it pops off the ice and the ice blows away. So that's what de-ice boots are. You blow the boots and off comes the ice. So yeah, so if you are going to be encountering ice, I've never had enough ice build up to really affect how the airplane flew, but you don't know it. So they say don't use. They say try not to use flaps. Approach at a higher speed. Yeah, so you don't stall. And then does the wing stall at the same angle of attack? I would say, yeah. So I would say if you want to be very specific, it's probably pretty close, but it would definitely be different because now the shape of the wing has changed because of the ice. So it would stall at a different angle of attack, and it's a mystery angle. So would it be higher? Would it be lower? Depends on the shape of the wing, and it depends how the ice is building up. So it would not be the same angle of attack. It might be close, might not be too close. So, but more speed will always help you out there. And will the stall warning horn work? It also depends what type of is it a mechanical one? Because that could get frozen into place if it's a mechanical one like Pipers have, or if you have the little reed type that Cessnas have. If there's any type of ice going in there, it could keep the reeds from vibrating or plug up the hole, and the horn would go off at a different speed too. It doesn't take much to change the speed that those stall warning horns are going off at. Doesn't take much. Like you could have like a little bug in there or something, and that could change your stall warning horn by 10 knots. So I know that's happened to us before. Yeah, there's this little tiny bug that was in the hose that kind of, I don't know, it goes back to the cockpit. The mechanic found it because we were over speeding. We oversped the flaps on this Cessna, and it happened a couple times. But it was like, who's over speeding all these things? So the thing is, the airspeed indicator was reading at the right position. Like, okay, say I don't know, what is it, 110 for your first notch of flaps. So you might be okay, or was it 85 for full flap, something like that. So 85, okay, give her full flap, but the airspeed was under reading, so you might have been going 95, but they just said, oh, 85, put down the flaps, and now you're putting on the flaps too fast, and we were overspeeding the flaps, and we kind of tried to figure that out. But yeah, so it doesn't take much to change that stall warning horn in a Cessna. So yeah, I wouldn't rely on it if you're in icing. So yeah. Yeah. Okay. Da, 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 Okay. Yeah. So Wrench is also wondering why he's not sure why planes haven't gone to multi-viscosity synthetic. He puts it in his cars and loves it. Yeah, I mean, the oil technology is coming. Like I know in my Volkswagen here, it's like they say like don't change the oil. It's like it's got synthetic in it, and it's do oil change like every 15,000 kilometers, which is what's that, about 9,000 miles, something like that, which is unheard of, like back in the old days. But yeah, the only thing that I can think of why they haven't gone to multi-viscosity synthetic oils is that the engine would probably have to be changed, or the testing on it, the aircraft certification testing it would be incredible. And it'd be a large cost to do that. And so I think it's just, and once you start messing around with airplane engine design, who knows how the reliability is going to be. So, I don't know. Okay. What's this? Safe heat pad is 200 watts, but rent guys pays for electric, so not planning to leave it plugged in all winter. Okay. I didn't know it was 200 watts. Okay, I stand corrected. So that's a pretty good chunk of electricity. But hey, it's that's why you're going to rent a plane. Hey, it's not my problem. There you go. And then ever spent the night in a light plane? Nope, and I don't want to. So here we go. No, what's this? I didn't know that. Tarp color can indicate thickness. Blue is the thinnest. That's interesting. I'll have to check into that. Okay. All right, I'll take this one here. I never thought about why we call them watch caps, knit watch caps. I don't know. Yours looks great. Thanks, man. Best $10 I ever spent. Okay. And yeah, cool. Okay, so that's about it for today with our winter flying. What's my next show going to be on? I have no idea. No. Well, the thing is, I was gonna make a separate video. Okay, this is just story time now. What I did the other day, I was trying to find a way to wash my motorcycle wheels. They're all covered in brake dust for like years. I'm getting lazy, not scrubbing them, wiping them, or nothing. But after my little trip there, okay, I got to clean these wheels. So I Google around to find out. I just tried going to like one of those coin operated pressure wash things. It's like, that didn't do anything. I got this stuff as a Meguiar's wheel and tire cleaner. That stuff's really good, man. So, and I bought a little brush for getting inside the wheel. Just spray the stuff on there, wipe it, spray it down. It's amazing. And so after I washed my wheels, okay, and I was thinking about, I got to make a separate video on this for my other thing. This is the live part of my channel, then the videos part of my channel. I got to make a helpful video for people out there. If you have a motorcycle, I didn't know this until when I washed my bike, it got all wet. And then, okay, I started up, it's in neutral. I put it in first gear, the engine stops. I'm like, oh crap, what's going on here? Is it not warmed up enough? Okay, well, put it in neutral, start it up. Okay, rev, everything's running good. Put it in gear, pull the clutch, put it in first, boom, engine stops. What's going on? I don't know. And then I was like fooling. Does motorcycles have a little kill switch? It's like, is that full of water? Is something making a weird connection here? Fiddling with wires? And I don't know. Okay, let's try it again. So, and then it went. And after that, went first gear. Off I went. Okay, well, maybe something had to dry out. So I Googled it afterwards. And turns out I never knew this until the other day. I've had my motorcycle for 9 years, about 9 years, 8-9 years. I've had my motorcycle now. I never knew it's got a safety switch on the kickstand. So if the kickstand's down, you put it in a gear, it kills the engine. So it keeps you from driving off with the kickstand down. I never knew that bike had that for like 8 or 9 years. And it's like, let me try this here. So I revved it up, okay, or started it up, put it in gear, cool. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to put the kickstand down. I put the kickstand down, boom, kills the engine. I was like, oh man, I got to make a video about that because I'm sure I'm not the only person that's happened to. But yeah, I don't know. I'm used to driving old. I had one motorcycle, didn't have any safety, anything. You just hit the starter and off you go. You can start it in first gear. I think, yeah, I did that before just for fun. Can I get this thing, put it in first, start it up, and the electric motor, kicks in as you go, kind of thing. Like, no safety, no nothing. But I don't know. My 25-year-old motorcycle is like way more high tech than my 1979 that I had before that. So, anyways, okay, yeah. enough of my babbling here. And so that's about it. So I'll be back on Wednesday because I do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday at noon Eastern. And yeah, we'll just kind of shut her down. So thank you for watching. Bye.